It's World Poverty Eradication Day, and this year marks the 70th anniversary of the proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, with the theme coming together with those furthest behind to build an inclusive world of universal respect for human rights and dignity. Doctoral researcher and development consultant Lekan Osunkoya joins us on the News Hour for more on this. Thank you for joining us. Now, the UN Sec General in a quote said that ending poverty is not a matter of charity, but a question of justice. How is that?
I think that it's very important to know that, for government to know that when we're talking about poverty, you have to be deliberate about the action. We just can't say that we want to take people out of poverty just by talking about it. Effort has to be taken by government at all levels to make sure that there's a coherent plan to make sure that people are taken out of poverty. And this has to involve a national action. As of right now, Nigeria is #1 in the world of the highest number of people who are living below the poverty line of less than $2 a day. And what that tells us is that every day, we're just about less than 300 million people. We overtook India with that figure earlier this year, and that was a report by a Brookings institution saying that. So it means that we're not doing enough, that government has not really been able to come up with a proper strategy to make sure that people are living poverty and then more people are being taken along to enjoy the economic benefit. Nigeria, our income over the last 10 years has doubled, but yet we are losing people to poverty. There's a report by the Brookings Institution saying that every second, 6 people in Nigeria is getting into the poverty line. So that means that despite the fact that we have increased economic opportunity for the country as a whole, yet we have, and this is only happening because we don't have a plan of action. We are not doing anything enough as a country to.
All right, Lekan, sorry to interrupt you, so we can make this conversational. You talked about the government not doing enough and that deliberate action is what is needed to end poverty. Well, as a researcher, what, in your opinion, what are these action plans that you think that the federal government of Nigeria can engage in to ensure that poverty is, if not completely eliminated, brought to, of course, a bearable minimum?
Thank you. I think the most important thing, if you look at Nigeria in the last 20 years, there has been several efforts by different governments to try to look at this problem and solve it head-on. But we have not done much. During the days of Obasanjo, we had the need strategy. It was supposed to be a grand action plan to bring more people into the economic opportunities, to reduce the number of people that are living under the poverty line. And what happened after Obasanjo left the government? We abandoned this plan. And now another government will come, Yar'Adua came, Goodluck came, and none of this effort is coming together because we're not looking at a long-term goal. And looking at long-term, for example, will mean that you cannot have a country of our numbers and we don't have infrastructure, we don't have manufacturing. You know, if you go into a supermarket, for example, and you want to buy almost 90% of all the stock in the supermarket is imported. So how do you take people out of poverty line when people how do you get them jobs? How do you give people economic opportunity to contribute into the society if they cannot have a job? If everybody cannot work for government, everybody cannot work for the private sector, if there are no opportunities to actually engage people to do this work. So government has to step up the game to make sure that there's a coherent plan that will outrun political errors. This has to go, there must be a 20-year plan, 30-year plan to say that this is what we are going to achieve, and when new government come or heart of government, we should be able to keep to this plan. If we don't do that, we can't just do we are simply playing a lip service to our idea of, for example, you give people some money, 5,000 naira every month. That doesn't change anything because we have to actually create systems and structures that actually allow people to flourish, opportunity for people to actually earn a living and then earn a decent living. Only then can you lift people out of poverty.
All right, then, there's been a call to respect human rights as it is fundamental. It has a fundamental connection between extreme poverty and human rights. Now, as a researcher, how can we connect this, and also can this really eradicate poverty? Can human rights eradicate poverty? And looking generally now, can we really have a world free of poverty?
I do believe, I'll start with the last part. I do believe we can have a world free of poverty, because if you look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the first one of it is what? SDG number 1, it says no poverty, because that means that this is the most important thing in the world now. It's not only in Nigeria, we might be one of the others countries in the world, but we saw that across the world, the number of people who are getting into, falling behind into the poverty line is increasing. And what we can do is that if you look at it from, if governance, like government and leaders and policymakers look at this from the point of view of human rights, and I think that will help them to pay more attention to the idea that you can only, the right to life, for example, is an extension of your economic opportunity, because if you are malnourished, if you're not eating, you're not able to get a job or look after your children or do anything at all, there's no way you can actually live that life. So if you begin to look at the idea that people has to be supported, government has to create systems and structures to make sure that people are able to participate effectively in the society by earning a decent living. And that way, it's easier for government to prioritize poverty project and do economic reforms and do different government agenda that will actually bring this to the front burner. And you can look at this, if you look at poverty also, it's a big player in peace and security. If you look at Nigeria, for example, part of the reason why we're struggling with this is because people are not having anything to do with their life. And then like being able to be good source of...
all right. Lekan Osunkoya, a doctoral researcher and development consultant. We must thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.